Well, hi, I'm the Redbeard Matt Thorup, and I've been a ZBrush user for, I think, about 10 years now, 9 of those as a professional character artist. And I'm currently a senior character artist at Epic Games. I also teach ZBrush courses. You can find my courses at redbeard.gumroad.com. And what I wanted to talk about today are some of the quick tips that I find myself in. So ZBrush is such a fluid and dynamic application that I've found over the years that, especially now as my life is completely different from when I started off. I had from 0 children to now 4 children, and the free time that I have to just play around and sculpt is getting more and more tight. So I've had to find ways to speed up some of the workflow that I've been doing. And so this is one of the things that I've been experimenting with as of late that's really increased my workflow and just getting a little bit more gestural, organic expressions out of some of my characters with just a little bit more speed. Okay, so let's jump in. And so this is actually a hand that I made in one of my courses. So if you followed along the courses, this is roughly one of the outputs that you would have on that. But this was really good to help me bridge the gap on some of my T-poses. But when I wanted to get a little expression, I wanted to go that extra step. And ZBrush has got this great, it's not a new thing, but it's something that I've found that I've been able to use this in many different ways than I thought I would initially, especially for block-ins. So what I want to do is make poses out of this hand that I could use in several different ways. So let's go ahead and just pose this really quick. And we'll do, a fairly simple pose out of this hand. This is more just for example. So let's just grab this index finger here. I'm going to do a blur. And then with this 3D gizmo, I'm just going to point it right where the knuckle is. So if the knuckle is going to be here, I'm going to hold Alt, click, and I'm going to drag this down. And the 3D gizmo will actually follow along the axis where I'm pointing if I'm dragging. So this is a cool little tip, just holding Alt and dragging, click and dragging. So I'm going to have it point down the finger and then just holding Alt. I'm going to simply change the orientation a little bit and then move the pivot point to be actually where the knuckle would move. I'm going to move that just a little bit and then slowly start positioning this finger just a little bit. And I'm using Mask Lasso for this and just getting more of so I want something a little bit more gestural out of this. So I'm just placing this 3D gizmo right where the joint would be. And I'm just doing, little poses. And I kind of want to have like a kind of thing. That's the technical term for this hand poses. And these ones I actually kind of want together. I'm going to do a kind of a broad stroke pose with this. You'll see just clicking Alt and dragging down, I'm able to position that. And then holding Alt again, I can just move the placement of that gizmo into the hand a little bit more. And I'll just pose the rest of this hand. Okay, so now I've done my rough pose. And I can do some things like I'll go back and I'll inflate some areas that kind of get squished, when you're, moving things around. But it actually creates really nice pinch points by just using the inflate button or not the inflate button, but the inflate brush and just inflating some of these areas. And this is the great thing about this is like I've already gone through the hard work of, sculpting this hand out. And so if I go back up in subdivisions, I really don't have to sculpt too much on it. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple folds and wrinkles that I would put in there, but not too much. The one thing I want to make sure is I keep that standard hand and it looks like I didn't duplicate it. So I'll just duplicate it now and go back in my history to the point where it's back to not moving. Good. So I have this hand, and I've already gone through and made several other sets of hands. So this hand, my casual hand, another casual hand, kind of a funky hand that's my whatever kind of hand, my fist hand, and then my holding something type of hand. So I've got 7 hands here or so. So I just want to make sure I've got these named. This will be hand 01. I have that. And then my base hand. So now what I want to do is create a insert multi-mesh brush, which is out of all of these hands that I've made, this is going to be really easy. The first thing I want to do though is make sure I have the orientation correct. So first thing I want to do is just go to my base hand, which is this one. And then what I am going to do is make sure, because when you click and draw it on, it's going to happen like perspective wise. So this will be the point that it will make contact with whatever surface is away from you. So that's knowing that. I'm going to orient this so it's pointing, the fingers are pointing towards me. Hit B, create insert multi-brush, and then it will go through, make my brush, which it just did. Now let's go ahead and test this out just on a sphere here. See if it works. Oops. I got to make Polymesh 3D, and I'm going to click and drag. Isn't that great? Look, I just made my gun. Then the cool thing is I can actually switch through, if I hit W, all the different hands that I have. So now I have my hands. So let's go ahead. Now I want to add this to my block-ins that I want a little bit more life out of. Okay, so now let's say we want to add a little bit of life to this block-in, but first what we want to do is just make sure that we can add these hands. These arms, I'm going to add them to. They don't have any subdivisions, so it'll be quite easy. Click on my hands, and what I'm going to do is just click on this point here and start clicking and make sure symmetry is on, click and dragging them out. Now I could play around with a few different settings here to make it a little bit more seamless. Let's do that. Let's just make my brush depth go in a little bit deeper, just a tiny bit. So that way they'll just be a little bit more flush. So I'm going to quickly draw them, and then I need to position them. This is why this 3D gizmo is awesome, because I can just quickly get the placement. And I'm not going to, worry too much about the exact position and scale just yet. As like this is all meant to be block-in. But it will help give me a sense of like proportion and life. But let's say, okay, this is cool, but he's still feeling really stiff. I just want to bring a little bit of life to him. So I'm just going to hit my W again to go back into my 3D gizmo, and let's just circulate some of these hands. Okay. That's fun. Another casual hand. Great. Ooh, these ones are funky. Nice. And because the way that this brush works, it kind of sizes things to a bounding box, and because these are a little bit different. But anyways, I can quickly see, okay, good. So what if what I want is actually, I don't want them both to be the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off, go out of symmetry, mask off that hand, and now I want to switch this hand to maybe the fist. That's a little bit big, obviously, so just got to scale it manually, position it. So now for a block-in, that's like actually giving me a lot of information. I think the hands are probably small. So what I would do is, because I've built them with good topology, I can split hidden, and I can actually just remake my subdivisions. So now I still have a high and a low of each of these hands, and so I can quickly, mask off these things, and I can scale them uniformly to adjust. So if the wrist is, closer to the right size, but now the hand's going to be more the right size too. And all of a sudden, just in a T-pose, there's nothing really that's been done, and he already has a lot more attitude. And so now what I would do is I would actually go into a quick block pose, and I would use these hands as a base and then start sculpting on top of those when I'm really posing a character and giving it a lot more life. But having this brush and just knowing that I've already put in the work to make this brush work speeds up my workflow a ton. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. Learn more about hands. And if you found this helpful, then I have many more courses at redbeard.gumroad.com. And always feel free to follow me on Instagram at _redbeard. Happy sculpting!